Well, good morning. Do you mind sharing your name and tell us where
Y-
you're coming
Yep,
from?
Willie Noyles, and I'm in St. Catharines.
All right. So, talk about the type of work you were doing and your injury.
I was basically contracted to a flower facility where it was almost a flower factory. And at the time, I was carrying a bunch of trays of flowers, and I was supposed to move them from where they had been hosed down to another area to dry. And I had like three or four piled on top. So I was really trying to see through flowers and couldn't see where I was going. And I hit a trailer hitch that they had there and went flying and landed on my knees or my knee and just shattered it completely.
This was a number of years ago, I take it.
Yeah, 2000, June.
Right. Okay. Well, what was the health and safety situation in your job?
Uh, that's a good question because it was never explained to me. There was no health and safety training before I started at all. So that didn't help matters. And it didn't help matters that they had hoses and wires running along the floor and that it was a painted concrete floor. So it was a bit slippery to begin with. And of course, they had just watered the flowers in that area, so the floor was a bit slippery, but hitting the trailer hitch was what did it.
Did you have a union?
No, I was a contracted employee through Kelly Services.
Explain that a little bit, because it's a temp agency.
Yeah,
All right. What most people probably don't necessarily know what that is. How does that work?
yeah, they basically you register with them and they'll call you out when there's work available, essentially.
Okay.
And I
Um,
was a last minute replacement that day.
okay. You were a rented worker in a way.
Yeah.
So, do you know if anything was changed as a result of your injury? Were any working conditions improved, or do you know anything about that?
No, not really, unfortunately.
Um, your employer. So, in your case, your employer is the agency, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So, did the employer um, uh, help you with your compensation claim, or oppose it, or what role did they play, if any?
They were kind of neutral.
Okay.
They never
What
gave me any problems, so I'll give them that.
what was your experience with the medical profession in all of this?
Uh the surgeon I got at the hospital was great, actually. The orthopedic surgeon. Um, and I ended up seeing him again a few years later for another issue, and he remembered it well. So I have no uh ill will against him whatsoever. He did the best he could.
Okay. Did the WSIB help you out? What was
Um,
your experience with WSIB? Either
well,
positive, negative, or either?
the health care or the nurse uh coordinator I got was great. She was super. And unfortunately, because of the fact that I was a temp worker, my loss of earnings were basically an average of what I had earned over the past year. So in the end, I was getting like 96 bucks a week. So it was pitiful.
Okay.
And
Um,
of course, I was no longer able to do my other job, so that didn't help.
years have gone by. What impact has the injury had with you and your family? What's been the impact?
Well, I know I had to move in with my parents after the accident while I was recuperating because the place I had at the time had stairs and I was in a wheelchair, so that was out. So I had to move in with my parents that had a one floor ranch style home. So I had to stay there for 3 months at the time, and that put strain on their life for sure. Um, and of course, I had to end up moving because of the accident to a ground floor apartment. So the move had to be done with me just sitting there watching everybody do it, which is not the greatest feeling in the world
Great.
because you almost feel like you're a burden to everybody. To hear everybody is lifting all this stuff and you're just sitting there going, it can go in there.
Yeah, that's understandable. Yeah.
Yeah, it was a horrible experience.
Having had a chance to think about your experience with WSIB, what changes would you recommend to the system?
Um, well, the first thing is that their case managers need to be consistent in what they say and back it up. Because the biggest problem I ran into was, oh, I guess it was about 4 or 5 months after the accident, I got a chance to teach a course at Niagara College. And I was in crutches at the time, or using crutches at the time. So I could do the job because I could just sit on a desk at the front of the classroom. And I had called my case manager beforehand and told him about this opportunity and told him how much it would be paying me because it was basically $50 a week because they paid you 25 an hour for a 2 hour course per week. And he said, oh, that's no problem at all. And then 4 months later, when we're going through the nail process, he says, oh, by the way, we'll be deducting this amount because you were overpaid. And I'm like, overpaid for what? And he said, well, you were doing this job. And I said, yeah, I told you about it. Oh, I don't recall that. So I lost $650 from my nail. So I ended up with $6,000 in the end, which is like, thanks. You've completely destroyed my life, and you're just going to say, oh, here's your $6,000. Have a nice life.
What
I'll,
as an injured as an injured worker, what do you think the purpose of the workers' compensation system is?
I think it should be there to provide financial aid and ensure that medical issues are dealt with for anyone who's injured on the job. And that if they're able to return to work, that you provide a dignified return to work process that has allowed the worker to heal before you do it, and B, that it's a job the worker can do, not just something you invent out of the top of your head.
This year is the 40th anniversary of Injured Workers Day.
Yep.
You participated in many of those events to speak out for injured workers. What message do you have for other injured workers?
That the fight must continue, that it's very important, it's extremely important that injured workers are dealt with fairly and that they're treated for as long as the injury lasts, not just this you magically heal at 65 BS, and that we must continue the fight. It's too important.
Well,
There have
thank
been
you.
some victories along the way, but there's also been some defeats. So we always have to keep on fighting.
Well, thank you very much, Willie.
Thank you.